The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Welcome to Aging Horizons. On today's show, we'll be talking about Social Security and how important it is to Montanans. We have an expert from Washington, D.C. and AARP to tell us about it. There's over 245,000 Montanans on Social Security, receiving about $1,600 a month, which results in $4 billion spent in Montana. We'll talk about that and so much more. Stay tuned.
Every 65 seconds, someone is affected with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Many become isolated at a time when help is most needed. If you or someone you love is affected, help is available, both for people with memory loss and their caregivers. Memory loss can feel frightening, but you are not alone. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
This is Bill. He just received his new Medicare card and is following some simple rules to protect himself from fraud. He knows to never give out his Medicare, Social Security, or bank number over the phone. And this is Nancy. She knows that to detect any problems, she always reads her Medicare Summary Notice or Medicare Advantage EOB to make sure the billing is correct. Both Bill and Nancy know that anything suspicious can be reported to Montana SMP at 1-800-551-3191.
45 years, 2 packs a day. It's like $80,000. I thought I was just hurting myself until I fell asleep in a chair with a cigarette. The whole house went up. I lost it all. I knew smoking was expensive, but I never thought it would cost me everything.
I've been shooting since I was young. It's something I've always enjoyed. I wasn't feeling like myself, and my friend noticed. He asked if he could hold onto my guns temporarily. At first, I was a little shocked, but then I agreed. I think he saved my life that day.
Welcome to Aging Horizons, brought to you by the Department of Public Health and Human Services Senior and Long-Term Care Division. I'm your host, Brian Lamore. I mentioned that we'll be talking about Social Security today, and over 240,000 Montanans receive it, and their families depend on it. It helps them in their golden ages to make ends meet and receive about $1,600 each on average, which I mentioned was about $4 billion a year is spent in Montana. Of course, we have a wonderful guest from AARP. We have Tom Nichols. You're Government Affairs Director at AARP in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Brian. I appreciate it.
Great. Well, let me read some of the qualifications you have here. You're quite knowledgeable on this topic. You're a federal lobbyist and policy expert on Social Security issues. For 6 years, you're a staffer in the U.S. House of Representatives for Congressman Paul Kondrasky of Pennsylvania. AARP has 38 million members, and you have a BA or BS in Quantitative Business Analysis from the Pennsylvania State University and a Master's of Art in Political Management from George Washington University. Whew, it's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me again. I appreciate it.
And I look forward to our conversation. You know, in the news, we hear a lot about the future of Social Security, basically where it is now, where it's going in the future, and there's a little bit of, I'll say, fear that's out there, or uncertainty, let's say. You're certainly qualified to tell us. What's the future of Social Security?
Well, thanks for asking. Like I said, I think that the future is that first and foremost that actually Social Security is in good shape at the moment, right? It does certainly face a long-term funding shortfall, but I think it's important to note what that really means, right? Yeah. So the folks who oversee Social Security's finances, the Social Security trustees, in their most recent report noted that Social Security can continue to pay 100% of promised benefits until 2034. And then at that point, if Congress doesn't take action, it will still be able to pay 80% of promised benefits until the foreseeable future, way out to 2095 at least. So it's important to know, I think that there is a lot of uncertainty out there. I think when people read articles that say that Social Security is going to be insolvent in 2034, a lot of times they believe that that means that the program is going to disappear or go away or go broke. And that isn't the case. Like I said, that even after 2034, without any action, Social Security can continue to pay 80% of promised benefits. Now, of course, that's not good enough. And I think another important point to make is that that 20% reduction that could happen in 2034 applies to everyone, right? So it would apply to both current retirees who are receiving benefits at that particular point and also future ones as well. So it's a really serious issue, and we want to encourage Congress to act as soon as possible to address it.
Right. Well, it's 10 years out, and right now what we're basically describing is a funding issue. Could you tell us how it is funded, and why is it possibly not going to be fully funded in 10 years?
Sure, absolutely. So it's primarily funded. The vast majority of Social Security's funding actually comes in through the payroll tax, right? So folks, every paycheck that they get, they will see the FICA reference on their paycheck, which stands for the Federal Insurance Contribution Act, and that is their contribution to Social Security. So that's the vast majority of the way that Social Security is financed. It's also financed via interest on the Treasury bonds that Social Security holds in reserve, and through some taxation of Social Security benefits at the federal level as well. So those are the primary mechanisms for its funding. Back in 1983, when Congress last made substantive solvency changes to Social Security, they recognized that there was going to be a lot of older folks who were going to be retiring out in the future, and they actually at the time decided to bring more revenue into the system than was needed to pay promised benefits. And that was the case for many decades, actually. And they basically used all of those dollars and invested them in Treasury bonds. And that's what we consider the trust funds these days. So when we talk about that 2034 number and Social Security going insolvent, it's more that the trust fund, the reserves, are actually going to be expired at that point. So they'll be used already. And then when that happens, you're simply left with the FICA taxes and the taxation of Social Security benefits to fund benefits, which is why you can continue to pay 80% of benefits for the foreseeable future, because there's always the FICA tax coming in.
So basically what you're saying is 20% is funded through investments right now, and that those will be dwindling down, I guess, in 10 years.
Yes, I'm sure you could. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because if 80% is left over with the FICA taxes and the taxation of benefits, that the other 20% would be coming from the trust funds, both the principal and the interest.
And I imagine it's going to be dwindling down a bit because more people are applying and receiving Social Security?
Yeah, it's a combination of demographic factors. You're absolutely right. And the first one is that we have a very large generation of folks who are retiring, right? And so that obviously has an impact on Social Security. We also, by and large, have had increases in longevity as well. So people are living longer. And so that combination of a larger generation retiring who are also living longer and receiving benefits for a longer period of time also has an effect. Demographically, the United States, much like a lot of other industrialized countries, we also have a lower birth rate these days as well. So fewer workers who are also contributing to the system.
Okay.
So I think you have a lot of demographic factors that are the reason.
Okay. Well, Tom, we've really wrapped up our first segment here pretty quickly. In our next segment, let's focus a little bit on some misconceptions about what Social Security does and who it serves. A lot of great information. Stay tuned. You've probably seen some big-name celebrities on your TV lately talking about all the Medicare benefits you're missing out on. But the insurance companies who are paying for these ads may be pushing benefits not available in Montana. Fortunately, help is available from a friendly state health insurance assistance program counselor who can help you sort it all out. It's free, and we screen everyone for eligibility regardless of your zip code. It's Montanans helping Montanans. Call today.
Respite. It's okay to need it. It's okay to want it. Will you provide it?
The hard part about having outside help is that there's not a lot of people out there who can do that kind of work. We've been very fortunate that our Bonnie has been with us for 7 years. I don't know what I'd do without her. I need her in our lives. She's our second mother. And I can't help but think of her that way.
To find out how to change lives, including your own, call 800-224-6034 or visit respite.mt.gov.
Did you just text me?
I didn't want to disturb you if you were sleeping.
Sleeping? I'm sitting right next to you, silly.
There you are. Hey, I found a couple of Medicare helping programs online that I think we ought to look into.
It says if we qualify, we can get help paying for our prescription drugs. Oh, and there's a program that can help pay our Part B premium.
To learn more about extra help and Medicare savings programs, call your local SHIP counselor today.
Maybe I better text him.
A decade of Montana fourth graders on Energy Share. If you're having trouble keeping your home warm this winter, Energy Share of Montana is here to help. We've helped thousands of Montanans who are having trouble paying their energy bills, and getting assistance from the friendly folks at Energy Share is only a phone call or Google search away. Energy Share is not a government program. It's neighbors helping neighbors who face energy emergencies. The Montana way. Call or visit our website today. Thanks to Energy Share, I'm cozy like a bear.
Hi folks, welcome back to Aging Horizons. I'm your host Brian Lamore. We're continuing our discussion about Social Security. We've got a wonderful guest from AARP and Washington, D.C. We have Tom Nichols. Welcome back to the show. It's great to have you here. And let's start at the top. I hear a lot of misconceptions about Social Security. People are putting them out as, oh, this is the truth, but there's a kernel of truth, but not a whole lot. What are some of the misconceptions?
Yep. So I think some of the misconceptions are, first and foremost, the one we already talked about, right? That Social Security is going broke. And like I said, that simply isn't the case. And, you know, Social Security, again, can continue to pay 80% of promised benefits until at least 2095. So certainly not going broke, right? I think other ones that I hear quite often, that the government raids Social Security in order to pay for other things. And I think your point about there being always maybe a kernel of truth in there that sort of lends weight to the myth. So that myth stems from what how Social Security invests the surplus money that was coming into Social Security for many years. And they invest that money into treasury bonds, which are widely considered, you know, one of the safest investments in the world. But treasury bonds, no matter who purchases them, if it's Social Security or if it's an individual American, the government is then able to use that money for other purposes and then pays back that bond with interest. So when it comes to Social Security, yes, Social Security invests in treasury bonds. The funding for, or the money from those treasury bonds, the government uses for other purposes and then pays back that money with interest, which helps Social Security's finances.
Yes.
One of the other myths that we hear often is that members of Congress don't pay into Social Security. And again, a bit of a kernel of truth, that was actually the case before 1984. Members of Congress and other federal employees paid into something called the Civil Service Retirement System, as opposed and not into Social Security. Based on changes that Congress made in 1983, members of Congress and other federal employees were brought into the Social Security system, so they do in fact actually pay into Social Security. I think some of the other myths we hear are that you could get more Social Security benefits if you retire early. So claim as early as possible, and you'll get more out of the program. So this one's a little bit more difficult because it ends up depending on a lot of factors. But for the most part, Social Security benefits are what they call actuarially neutral. Sorry for that. Where that they basically, if they pay you over a longer period of time, they will essentially just pay you a smaller amount per month. If they pay you over a shorter period of time, they'll pay you more amount per month. But it's all basically actuarially the same. So the amount you get, now granted, the amount you get also depends on how long you live and are collecting benefits. So it's a little bit difficult to say, but for the most part, we often encourage folks to try to wait to claim retirement as long as possible, because once you actually claim Social Security benefits, you lock in that monthly benefit for life. And at some point in time, particularly if you have other retirement resources and you spend them down or you don't have them anymore, you might just be left with Social Security. And so therefore, locking in a larger monthly payment from Social Security is better. And I think maybe one more myth is that you're not allowed to work at the same time as collecting Social Security. So this is not the case, actually. You can, in fact, work while collecting Social Security retirement benefits with some caveats, right? So Social Security doesn't simply say that just because you're working, you can no longer collect Social Security benefits. What they do say, though, is that if you've retired and you started collecting prior to your full retirement age, which depends on when you were born, you can work, but only up to a certain level. And then after that level, they start reducing your Social Security. So for instance, you can, if you're below your full retirement age, you can earn up to over $21,000 a year before Social Security starts deducting $1 off of your Social Security for every $2 over that limit. If you're in your full retirement age, you can actually earn over $56,000 a year, and if you earn over that, then Social Security starts reducing $1 for every 3.
Okay.
And then if you already passed your full retirement age, you can work and not experience any deductions.
Deductions at all.
So we hear from folks a lot on this particular point, and I think that it's always important to reinforce that even if those Social Security benefits are reduced because of their work over certain limits, they actually do get that money back. So Social Security will return that money post your full retirement age, and they'll even recalculate your benefits if you've earned enough in a particular year to justify a recalculation to higher benefits.
Okay, that's great. Now, sometimes I hear people say that we've got a lot of refugees coming in, and they're saying, oh, they come in and they get Social Security benefits right away. That's not true, is it? They have to become eligible the usual way?
Yes, so absolutely. And this applies basically to everyone, is that the way that one qualifies for Social Security is through work and contributions under one's own Social Security number, right? And so the minimum qualification to get Social Security is that you would have to work basically 10 years or around 40 quarters and make those contributions into Social Security under your own Social Security number. So yes, we do hear that one as well. And again, for everybody, it applies evenly, is that you have to work and contribute at least 10 years. They calculate your benefit on your top 35 years of earnings, so and all based on your contributions under your Social Security number.
Okay, that's great. We'll quickly draw to a close on our second segment. We put up some websites and telephone numbers. If this is a little bit complicated, we have people to help you out. You don't have to figure this out yourself. Now we got a lot more great information. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Can you say ombudsman?
Ombudsman. Ombudsman?
Uma Doodlesman? Fortunately, you don't have to say it right to get the help of a long-term care ombudsman. If you or a loved one reside in assisted living or long-term care, an ombudsman can help resolve any issue. And these services are completely free and confidential. Now, why don't you try that again?
Ombudsman.
I was the last guy you'd expect to get diabetes. I was a competitive runner and I always took care of myself. So when I was diagnosed, it kind of threw me. But it's really encouraging to know I'm not alone with it. There are a lot of other people going through the same things as I am. It takes some effort. You have to keep after it. Exercise, meds, and diet are the key. But there are a lot of folks who want me to succeed. Diabetes is not the end of the world. With effort and attitude, you can have a normal life.
I think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
Elder abuse is a growing problem, and it's happening right here in our Montana communities. At least 1 in 10 older adults are victims of physical or emotional abuse, financial exploitation, or neglect. To get help or report elder abuse, call your local area agency on aging or Adult Protective Services at 1-844-277-9300.
Welcome back to Aging Horizons. I'm your host, Brian Lamore, and continue our discussion on Social Security with AARP National Representative from Washington, D.C., Tom Nichols. Now, Tom, Social Security is so important to Montanans. I don't think a lot of us realize how important it is and how people get along because of it. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that Social Security probably touches the lives of almost every Montanan, right? And you talked a little bit about it before too, is that the average Social Security benefit is around $1,600 a month, which is, frankly, it's quite modest, right? But when you realize how much people how much they rely on even that modest benefit, it becomes even more impactful, right? So, in Montana, around 45% of individuals 65 and older rely on their Social Security benefits for at least 50% of their income in retirement. But almost 20% of 65 plus households rely on Social Security for 90% or more of their income. So when you combine sort of that really modest average benefit with how much people rely on it, you can see how impactful Social Security really is. It keeps, I think over a 3-year span, it kept about 65,000 Montanans out of poverty. I think without Social Security, to be looking somewhere almost at a 40% poverty rate amongst older folks, and with it, it's around 8%. I know nationally, Social Security keeps 16 million people out of poverty. So it's incredibly important.
And, we talk about the income that an individual receives from this, but there's also benefits that if a Social Security, a person who's working and they pass away, their family can receive benefits. Tell us more about that, and that's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, most of us, frankly, when we think about Social Security, we probably often think about it just from a retirement perspective, right? But over the years, Congress has expanded Social Security to where it offers other benefits for workers and their families. So first and foremost, we have disability benefits, right? So if a worker becomes disabled while they were working, then they have disability benefits available for them that are helpful because of that loss of income that they've just experienced. As you point out, there are spousal benefits in Social Security as well. So the spouse of a worker can receive up to 50% of the full retirement benefit from the spouse worker. And then also survivor benefits, right? So in the event that a worker passes away, their spouse and even their children, or frankly even their parents can get Social Security benefits sometimes, depending on if they're eligible. But there's lots of different types of Social Security benefits, and I can tell you that I know we talked a lot about the importance of retirement. it becomes almost even more important when you're talking about folks with disabilities and folks who are survivors or widows, widowers of workers who've passed away.
You know, I think many times we really don't think of the people who depend on us for income, families, children. We think, well, how much am I getting for Social Security, and how is that going to make my life better? But there's the benefit in case you do pass away that makes all the difference. I know there was a car accident that happened, and the parents died, and I think 2 or 3 children were injured, but they came out okay. And all of a sudden it's like, well, what happens with the kids? I mean, there's no income coming in, and that's very important.
It is, absolutely. I think, I think we are fortunate that we have a society where we value providing support for the folks who are survivors of workers, right? And to not leave these folks destitute with nothing. And so Social Security, like I said, it provides just such an important source of income, not only for retirees, but for folks with disabilities and for survivors of past workers.
Well, now we have a telephone number we can put up for AARP, Social Security focused. How can, if people were to call this number, how does AARP help them with Social Security issues?
So we're very fortunate that we have a lot of folks who are able to answer lots of different questions. And I'll also, even beyond the phone, sort of point out a couple other resources too, right? So AARP.org is a wonderful resource for Social Security and probably lots of other issues that affect older Americans as well, older Montanans. And we also have something called the Social Security Resource Center that provides a lot of great material for folks on Social Security. There's a way to ask questions through that as well. And so we certainly have a lot of great resources on AARP.org.
And I know you come to Montana, you attended the Governor's Conference on Aging, individuals did. The education component about the networks that are out there is really important, and you're very involved with that, aren't you?
Yeah, so we actually, the idea of trying to provide people with the information that they need is a key component of what AARP does, frankly, on Social Security and so many other issues as well. So, we're very pleased and honored to be able to be a trusted source of information for so many folks on Social Security, on Medicare issues, on trying to prevent fraud, on prescription drugs, and frankly, the list goes on and on. So we're very proud to be a trusted source of information for folks.
And real quickly, you're an advocate, but many times you need local people to help out. How do they help out?
Well, absolutely. So first and foremost, now, I'm a former congressional staffer, so I always encourage folks to call their members of Congress, even just to tell them their personal stories, right? To talk to them about, in this case, how important Social Security is to them, right? To tell them the personal stories. From personal experience, I will tell you how far those stories really do go. And then I think one more AARP resource is on AARP.org. We also have a page called You Earned It, and we'd be happy to accept as many folks that want to advocate for these issues as possible.
And you'll tell them the issues, you'll educate them so they can be better informed. Well, Tom, thank you so much for coming in and doing the show today. We really appreciate it. Lots of great info. And for our viewers, thank you for joining us. And you can help AARP by advocating with them. So have a good day.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.